Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Debt Hotline. My name is Hannah. I am with Team Solo and excited to be hosting tonight's episode and very excited about the topic that we're going to be discussing as well as our special guest. Wanted to take a moment to introduce her and also the topic. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how I rebuilt my credit after debt, and we're having a live Q&A with a credit expert. Our guest's name is Melinda Carrera, and I wanted to take a moment to read a bio about her. Melinda is a credit expert and owner of Street Financial. She once faced poor credit and overwhelming debt herself, and she decided to turn her own financial struggles into her greatest strength. By working super diligently to raise her credit score into the high 700s, she not only transformed her own life, but also discovered a passion for helping others do the same. So today she uses her firsthand experience and years of advising clients to guide individuals through credit repair, debt resolution, and building long-term financial health. Melinda's mission is simple. She wants to show people that no matter your starting point, you can rebuild your credit and reclaim your financial freedom. And that's what she does at Street Financial. So, Melinda, can you go ahead and tell us if I missed anything? Tell us a little bit more about yourself, and welcome to the Debt Hotline. Thanks for being our guest tonight.
Of course, my pleasure. So you pretty much hit everything on point. I once, like she said, like Hannah said, I once experienced terrible credit and I just wanted out of that situation. I've always had a passion for finances. I worked in the banking industry for over 10 years prior to even starting credit repair. But even with that extensive banking history, I still was not taught how to properly manage my credit, how to properly get good credit cards. So I personally didn't even know, even though I had such a long, extensive history with banking. So it to me, I felt like it was something that I had to kind of learn on my own, but also this was something that I realized like people don't really teach in certain unless you have family that's going to teach you, they don't really teach this in school. So and my mom, she didn't have the education, she didn't teach me, so I had to learn the hard way. But once I was able to really utilize my credit and really get credit cards that make sense for me and really start to get the benefits of having good credit, I just got addicted. And it's really not that hard. It's not as hard as it sounds because we have so many rights, and it's really just sometimes just a phone call. So I share that with people. I share that with thousands of people so far, and I just really want to help so many people because I once experienced bad credit, and having good credit is just such a world of a difference.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I want to dig a little deeper if you don't mind, and just say that, we're grateful to have you on the show tonight and to talk about your own experience. And I really admire that you are doing this for a living, trying to help people get out of the situation that you were once in yourself. So, can you tell us a little bit more about exactly what you do at Street Financial? And I'm just going to go ahead and share also your website. It's www.streetfinancial.net for anyone who's interested in learning more. Can you tell us what you do with Street Financial exactly?
So I really a lot of times people don't really understand their credit. I kind of break it down, and it's knowledge that is out there, but there's just so much information and trying to collect all of this different information, and I break things down so I can look at your credit report. Some people may have poor credit due to something really small, and they may be getting declined because they may have too many addresses. Your scores may be 800 credit score, but you're still getting declined, but you may just have too many addresses, phone numbers, employers. That personal information it draws a red flag to lenders and creditors because you don't look as stable as possible. You don't look as stable. So it might be something small like that, or there might be situations where, hey, your credit is just not the best because you've been applying for too many things. Don't apply for anything for 6 months and you'll start getting approvals. So it's just small things, breaking down their credit report. I also have letters that, like, if you have collections on your credit report, sometimes those collections are well past 7 years. Those by law don't necessarily need to be on your credit report. So just looking at your credit report, telling you what you need to do to have better credit. A lot of people come to me because they're either getting denials or they know that they have bad credit. Because there are people who have good credit scores that are still getting denials, still not getting good rates. And that really, your credit score, having a high credit score means nothing if you're not going to get approvals or good rates. So I also educate people because having a high score is not the most important thing. Having a good quality credit report is what is most important. So it's the education piece, reading their credit report to them, and then giving them tips on how they can get negative accounts off their credit report. Sometimes settling accounts and having them removed from your credit report. You can still pay a debt and it not be on your credit report. And whatever is not on your credit report, you legally do not have to disclose when applying for credit cards or any type of lending. So just basically putting people in a better credit situation.
I love that. And can you tell us a little bit more about your own personal experience with rebuilding your credit? I know that there was there were some circumstances in your past where you had fallen into some debt struggles. Can you tell us a little bit about that debt that you had and what you did to resolve it and then rebuild from there?
Yeah, I did pay per deletes. Pay per deletes are amazing because basically you're paying for the debt, but you're making an agreement with them and you're telling them that you will pay for it if they delete it from your credit report. A lot of times they will delete it from your credit report, but they're not going to do it if you don't ask. So that was something that helped me. And it wasn't necessarily, I still had to pay the debts off. However, I was able to negotiate a lot of them for a way lower amount. One of the biggest debts that I had was a $4,000 debt that I was able to negotiate for $700. So it's doable. Like it's not that it's not an end all. You really have to just advocate for yourself. You have to know your rights. And that's really one of my things that I did was I just started negotiating all of my debts first. That's the first thing I did. I also started rebuilding credit. There is 20, well, back then it was 2019, but even then in 2019, like you don't have to go the traditional banking route and get a secured card and use your own money. I didn't have the money at the time to put $300 down on a credit card. There's credit cards now where you can get kickoff. You can go on your smartphone, go to your app store and type in credit, and there's going to be a list of credit building apps that could build your credit. So going the traditional banking route is not always good for you in that time. If you don't have the funds to do that, you shouldn't have to wait and have your credit struggle for you to start building credit, where you can literally start building credit from your phone.
Yeah, so it sounds like you had some like several maybe different lines of debt and you contacted the credit bureaus and then the collectors or whoever it was that you owed the debts to, and you negotiated with them to do a pay per delete. Can you tell us a little bit more about what kind of debts they were?
Yeah, I know I had a Capital One credit card, and with that one, I did a pay per delete. I know, I can't remember if it was Experian or Equifax, it was one of those, but it came off of TransUnion and it came off another bureau, but it stayed on either Equifax or Experian. And so with that, like once you do your pay per delete, you pay them, they're not going to want to deal with you anymore. They're not going to be as helpful once you're done paying them. However, I have the proof that I paid it. So now I got to contact the bureaus for them to remove it because they agreed that they removed it. And there's proof that they already removed it from TransUnion. So it was TransUnion and another bureau. I want to say it was Equifax and it remained on Experian. They didn't do exactly what they said that they were going to do, but I had proof. You always, always get proof. Never, never do a pay per delete without getting proof or some, at least an email. So that was part of like where I, like as far as like contacting, I contacted them. I was constantly in contact with them. Like at that point I think they were tired of me, but you do have to stay on it. I was constantly contacting them just to let them know like, hey, I refreshed my credit report, I still see it reporting on Experian, and this is supposed to be off my Experian, it already came off of my Equifax and TransUnion. So just staying on top of it, because they can say that they'll do it and sometimes they don't do it, so you have to call back.
Yeah, it makes me think of a personal situation. So my husband a couple years ago had his identity stolen. Someone found his ID and stole it, and kind of went on a shopping spree with his information. They opened up a bunch of like credit card accounts, applied for a bunch of loans. I think they stole a car actually.
Wow.
They rented a car from Enterprise and then never returned it. So anyway, that was a fun, crazy journey, and we learned a lot through it. But one of the things that we had to do is like keep a spreadsheet of all of the different like credit applications and loan applications and
Wow.
things that the person bought under his name, and then we had to contact the bureaus, get his credit frozen so that
Mhm.
they couldn't run it anymore, and then we had to dispute all of those fraudulent like uh, I guess, applications. And that was crazy, but we really like I think one thing about building credit is you do have to be fairly proactive, especially if you're trying to get a disputed debt off of your report, or if you've done like a pay for delete, you have to contact the bureaus and you have to be very proactive, very maybe even a little bit annoying to make sure that they hold their side of the bargain, I guess, and get those things removed. But yeah, that's crazy. So, do you remember what it was like, Melinda, for you to negotiate with Capital One? It sounds like you had a Capital One credit card. What was it like having that conversation with them to say, "Hey, if I can pay this off, will you remove it from my credit report?" What was that conversation like?
I think Capital One was pretty easy. I want to say they were pretty easy. I want to, it was like I had a one main loan account. They were pretty difficult, but Capital One was pretty like, I want to say they like split the debt in half. They were pretty easy to work with. One main was one of the creditors where I know that they told me that they could not negotiate, and then I remember a couple weeks later we were able to negotiate. So one main was one of those ones where they were only going down like a couple $100s, and then somehow ended up taking off like $1,000 off of a $3,000 debt. So you just have to stay at it. Once you'll know once you hit your bottom line, they will, if they're calling you back a couple days later, then they're still wanting to work with you. Like, oh, you know what, I got an approval. So they really want to just close out those debts because they buy these debts for pennies sometimes. So it's not like they just want the money.
Yeah, and if you're a consumer and you're willing to pay something, like don't give up, and don't expect them to accept your first offer of whatever you can pay to settle the debt.
Hmm.
It may take several rounds of negotiating, lots of phone calls, etc., to be able to find an agreement. At Solo, we have a tool called Solo Settle that can help you negotiate with creditors and debt collectors and attorneys, depending on your debt situation, if you've been sued or even before you've been sued. Solo Settle can help you negotiate online, digitally, so you can kind of skip those phone calls and move everything to a digital platform, negotiate your debts down and settle for less. And then we also help you protect your legal rights while doing so. So, if for anyone watching and interested in doing something similar to what Melinda did, where you settle your debt for less, check us out at solosuit.com. I'm going to go ahead and share a link for anyone watching live. I'm going to drop that here in the chat. And then again, I just wanted to share for anyone who's interested in learning more about credit, breaking down your credit report, or just needing some general information, educational resources, you can contact Melinda. Her website is www.streetfinancial.net. So with that being said, I wanted to jump into a few live questions here on the Debt Hotline. We had several people submit questions beforehand, and I wanted to share some of those questions with you, Melinda, and get your thoughts as a credit expert. So first things first, we actually had someone submit a video. So I wanted to share my screen and have you watch the video, Melinda, and tell us your thoughts based on this person's question. So let me go ahead and get that set up.
That's cool. They can send a video.
Yeah, this is from a woman named Juanita. So here, let me go ahead and get that played.
Morning, how are you? My name is Juanita Prasad, and my question to you is: if you're being sued by a credit card company and you had to appear in court and they did not show, um, is they not obligated to have to take this off of your credit report, or does it stay on your credit report?
They are not obligated to do anything. You would have you. It might come off. It may not. It may or it may not come off, but they're not obligated to do anything.
Gotcha. And so for some negotiating, like if you have been sued for a credit card debt and you're trying to settle the debt, you could, as part of negotiating, ask them to remove it from your credit report.
Hmm.
But like you said, Melinda, they're not obligated to do anything unless it's explicitly written in your agreement, I would say.
Correct. You can always fight. You have a stronger case since they didn't show up, but as far as like an obligation, they're not obligated. And like Hannah said, it has to be stated there, which I don't know if it would be stated or not, but they're not obligated unless it's stated.
Yeah, according to my understanding, if you're in a legal battle and you're trying to settle and get the lawsuit dismissed, as part of the agreement that would be filed within the court case, and you're trying to get it removed from your credit report, you would need to negotiate that as part of your agreement. So, yeah. Oh, and I also wanted to just give a quick disclaimer and say that, while Melinda is a credit expert and we help people navigate legal issues at Solo, neither of us are attorneys. So please don't take any of this as like legal advice, or, this doesn't, our answers don't form an attorney client relationship, but we do have a lot of experience navigating these issues. And so hopefully that answer helps you, Juanita. Okay, next question. Let's see.
Just real quick for Juanita, I definitely give it a try though. Definitely contact the bureaus and give it a try.
Yeah, I agree. Like, what's the worst that could happen? They say no, and nothing changes, or maybe if you're lucky, it could get removed. That'd be
Right.
awesome. Okay, let's see. All right, our next question is from Irene in South Carolina. Irene says, I'm trying to buy a house and my credit score is 486. How can I get my credit score up so I can get a mortgage?
So it all depends on your actual credit. There may be situations where there might be a situation where you can just become an authorized user and your score may jump up. It all depends on what it is that your credit is lacking. So credit is measured in 5 categories. It's measured in 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. So if you're missing with, if your credit is down due to payments, like late payments, then that will take 2 years of on-time payments to remove the damage of one late payment. So if that's the case, you're going to want to dispute late payments. If it's utilization, that means you just need to pay your balances down, preferably to 30%. If it's inquiries, too many inquiries, recent inquiries, so too much new credit, then you can go ahead and call the credit bureaus, and whatever is not if you have inquiries on your credit report that are not tied to anything, you can go ahead and dispute those off your credit report. Um, it really depends. It's kind of hard to say without looking at your actual credit report, Irene, but I would suggest that you have somebody look at your credit report to see exactly, or myself, to see exactly where it is that your credit is struggling. Because if it's something simple like an authorized user, or if it's something simple where you can just remove inquiries, or it could be something where you may just need to build credit. Where I mentioned it's 2025, you can go on your app store and build credit from your phone. There's the Credit AI, there's Kickoff. I recommend Credit AI if you need a credit card. That's an amazing credit card where it can basically boost your score anywhere. And I have a video on my TikTok, has over 1 million views, and it talks about credit. I talk about Credit AI, and there's thousands of comments who have people who've got over 100-point increase. It's a credit card that you can get right from your phone, but it does take 3 months to start reporting on your credit report.
And can you say that again? It's Credit AI?
Yeah, Cred AI. So what it is, it's a debit. It's basically a bank account, but it reports to the credit bureaus as a credit card. It's the only credit card that only bank account that does that.
And how exactly does that work? So it reports like how much money is in your bank account, or what is?
No, I don't honestly, it's an AI thing. It's been around since 2019. I have a video, it's my most popular video on my TikTok. Basically, and it sounds too good to be true, but it's a bank account that reports to all three bureaus as a $1,500 trade line. Like you got approved. It looks like you went and got approved for $1,500 as a credit card. I don't know how it does it. It just does it. It's an AI thing. I don't know if it tricks the credit bureaus to looking like you got $1,500, but it's a legit card. It's been around for a long time. I think it came out in 2019. It's one of the first credit cards that I got to start rebuilding my credit back, and it's still positively reporting every single month. So that's something you can get. There's Kickoff where um, it's like a small fee every single month. They have Kickoff Plus where you can pay $20 a month, but then you get the money that's accumulated on the back end. There's so many other credit cards or creditors that you can get to rebuild your credit back up. If she needs that, you have to see where your credit is struggling.
Yeah, and you mentioned the breakdown of like the percentage of that goes into the algorithm that the credit bureaus use to like determine your credit score, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us again the breakdown, like what percentage, and then like what the category is?
Yes. So it's 35, 30, 15, 10, 10. 35% is going to be payment history. That's the biggest bucket. So anytime you miss a payment, your score can drop anywhere from 10 to 100 points. And it takes 2 years of on time payments to reverse the damage of one single late payment. So you don't want to be late. I mean, you can honestly be late every single month. You don't want to be more than 30 days late. Let me rephrase that. After you're 30 days late, that's when it affects your credit. If you know you're going to be late, make arrangements because it's the most damaging thing to a credit report. If that's the case, if late payments are hurting, then you have to dispute those late payments. But I'm going to be honest with you, anything that's older than 6 months, they are more difficult to come off. The sooner you get on it to dispute them, the easier it is for them to be updated. They don't necessarily get deleted, though that gets updated. The next one is 30%. That's going to be utilization. So when you have a credit card and you're maxing it out, then that's going to hurt your utilization. So you want to stay below 30% on that. And really, all you have to do is pay attention to your reporting date. So your credit card reports one time a month. As long as your utilization is down on that day that it reports, you can have it maxed out all month long, unless that day you want to make sure it's down that it reports, especially if you are trying to get a mortgage or something like that, car, anything like that. Make sure you know your reporting date. The next one is going to be 15% is going to be credit mix. So you have to show revolving and installment. Revolving is going to be anything that is like a credit card or a credit line, and installment is going to be anything with an end date. So personal loan, student loan, auto loan. You have to be able to show that you're capable of handling both type of accounts. So credit mix. 10% is going to be inquiries. So you don't want to have too much new credit. Or you don't want to be applying for too many things. I'm sorry, not new credit, applying for too many things. So inquiries is 10%, and the other 10% is going to be history. So you want to make sure that you have at least 7 years history. And the way to fix that is you can just become an authorized user on somebody that you know has good credit, because you want to be selective as well. You don't want to just become an authorized user on anybody's account.
Super helpful breakdown. So again, that's 35% is your payment history, 30% is your utilization, 15% is your credit mix, and then 10% is your inquiries, and another 10% lastly is how long you've had credit history. So
Mm-hmm.
super helpful breakdown. Irene, I think hopefully you got some great tips on ways that you can further bump your credit to get it a little higher and help you get that mortgage you're trying to seek. Our next question is from Marcus in Georgia. Marcus says, my credit score is stuck at 620, even though I've paid down most of my debt. What else can I do to break into the 700s?
If it's 620, so it's hard for me to say exactly without seeing a credit report. I don't know necessarily where your credit is struggling. I hope my previous answer I don't know if they're able to hear the previous answer, but I hope that the breakdown of the credit would help. What I would suggest is go to Experian.com. Experian has a wonderful free tool on there. It just does it for Experian, but it breaks down exactly where your credit is struggling or where your credit is good at. So it will tell you the 35, 30, 15, 10, 10, and it has it color coded. So it might say, if you're all the way green in payment history, or it might be orange, that means it's not so good, or it might be red, that means it's bad. So it color coordinates exactly where your credit is struggling. So I would suggest, Irene too, and Marcus, go to Experian.com and go to support and get your credit report, and it does a wonderful breakdown of your Experian. And I'm sure your TransUnion and your Equifax are going to be pretty similar to those. So definitely look at that. But if it's stuck at a 620 and you pay down most of your debt, if you just recently paid it down, give it about 30 days for it to update. If you pass the 30 days, then it could be maybe you need history. It could be maybe you need credit mix. Sometimes people only have credit cards, or sometimes people only have like loans, installments, so student loan, personal loan, and they don't have any credit cards. So you have to see where it is that where your credit is struggling, because there's no way to necessarily, it's something, because if you pay down your debt and your utilization is down and you have history, then it's something else on there. It could be a late payment that maybe, I don't know if that's the case, but could be a late payment that's still within the 2 years, because it takes 24 on-time payments to reverse the damage of one single late payment. So it could be that. There's several things that it could be, but I would have to see your actual credit report to tell you and pinpoint it. But I hope my answer helps.
Super helpful. The next question comes from Scott. Scott's one of our live listeners, and he says, Melinda, can you talk about your different specific offers in helping us repair our credit scores?
Specific Talk about your specific offers and helping. So to repair your credit report, are you saying what I offer so that you can repair it yourself? I have letters on there, late payment letters. So late payment, with if they're out of the 6 months, you do have to use the law to get those off, where you can dispute those directly with the actual creditor. I have credit reviews where I actually review your credit with you over the phone. I have Zoom calls that I can do with you. So we're looking at your credit, and I'm advising you based on your credit what's best for you to do. What else do I have? I have free resources on there as well. Like I have the Experian exact. Okay, so I talked about how to look at your credit report on Experian. If you go to my website, I have a direct link on there on Experian where you can go ahead and, I want to say it's I have a resources page on there. So I have a lot of stuff. If you just go to my website and just browse through it, there are several things that can help you, if you are one who is looking to rebuild your credit or learn more about your credit.
Love it. Again, Melinda's website is Street Financial, and the URL is www.streetfinancial.net. Okay, next question. I think this will be the last question for tonight's episode. That's all right with you, Melinda?
Yeah, absolutely.
This one comes from another live listener. It's Niche Travels. Niche Travels says, how hard is it to remove a charge off? Does sending a letter requesting a removal in exchange of payment help?
Sending a letter, doing something always helps. If you are trying to, it sounds like the sending a letter requesting a removal in exchange of payment. So if you're trying to pay it, then you could just contact them directly. I don't know if I'm reading this correctly, but if you're in exchange of payment, you don't necessarily have to send a letter if you're willing to pay. You can contact them directly and negotiate something with them. I would say negotiate the debt if you are planning to make a payment.
Perfect. Well, I think that's it for tonight, for this episode of the Debt Hotline. Thank you so much, Melinda, for joining. And I guess I just want to ask, any last words on credit repair, debt issues, anything you'd like to say at all?
Yeah, I would just say, like, if you are one who is struggling with bad credit, give it like a solid 3 months of you working on your credit, and you can definitely make a huge difference if you stay at it for 3 months. It's not it's not as difficult as you may think it is. There is so many great videos on YouTube. I have a free resource page on my website. Just stay at it, because a lot of people hear credit repair and they think like, oh, well, I'm gonna get scammed, and you may. So do it yourself. I always tell people, do it yourself. There's so many videos where they show you how to dispute. I have videos on my TikTok where I show you how to dispute. There are credit cards that you can get directly from your phone that can help you out, that may knock off years of you trying to wait to start rebuilding your credit to start getting approved for credit cards. So it's not something that takes forever. I know it sounds crazy, but you literally can knock off years if you just stay at it for 3 months. Otherwise, you'll have to wait 7 years for those items to fall off. And that's such a long time.
Well, that's encouraging to know that if you can work really hard at it for even just a few months, you can see a bump in your credit score and see an improvement. So, yeah, it's not impossible to rebuild after having debt issues, filing bankruptcy, maybe getting sued for debt. It's possible. People do it all the time, and so can you. And I do want to say, for anyone who is struggling with debt, you can go over to solosuit.com. We have lots of resources to help you. If you've been sued, we can help you respond and block a default judgment and buy yourself time to figure out your next steps. And we can also, with our tool Solo Settle, help you negotiate with creditors and collectors to settle your debts outside of court. No matter what stage of the debt process you're in, even if it's before it's gone to collections, you can negotiate and settle for less and kind of get back on track so that you can avoid hurting your credit further and continue to rebuild and prosper. So thanks so much, everybody, for tuning in, for submitting your questions to the Debt Hotline. For anyone listening and that has debt questions, you can call us at 801-613-8181. That's the Debt Hotline. You can submit your questions via voicemail, and we respond to these questions weekly on the Debt Hotline. So we're always looking for ways to further help people, and we really appreciate our guest tonight, Melinda Carrera, for joining. Thanks so much again, and thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you, guys. Have a good one.